What does it take to be labeled as one of the worst leaders in the world? Let's delve into the life of Nicolas Maduro, a man whose journey to power began in the most unlikely of places. He was once a bus driver, navigating the bustling streets of Caracas, Venezuela. But ambition drove him to trade his steering wheel for the mantle of leadership. Rising through the ranks, he became a union leader, championing the rights of his fellow drivers. But Maduro's ambitions didn't stop there. Under the wing of the charismatic Hugo Chavez, Maduro was appointed as vice president, his loyalty earning him the trust of Chavez. Yet, in the shadow of Chavez's untimely death, a cloud of controversy loomed. Maduro ascended to the presidency amidst heated debates and allegations of a rigged election. Thus began the reign of Nicolas Maduro, a reign marked by a series of catastrophic missteps. A leader's decisions can make or break an economy. In Maduro's case, it was the latter. When Maduro took the helm, he inherited an economy that was already on shaky ground, but instead of stabilizing it, his economic policies only served to exacerbate the situation. First, let's discuss hyperinflation. Under Maduro's watch, Venezuela's economy spiraled into one of the world's worst hyperinflation crises. His decision to print more money to cover the government's deficit led to a devaluation of the currency. The bolivar, once a symbol of stability, became practically worthless. To put it in perspective, by late 2023, it took a whopping 2 million bolivars to buy a single US dollar. Next, we have food shortages. Maduro's policy of price controls aimed to make basic goods affordable backfired spectacularly. Instead of ensuring affordability, it led to a decline in production. Why? Because manufacturers could no longer afford to produce goods at the government-mandated prices. This, coupled with hyperinflation, led to widespread food shortages. The bare shelves in supermarkets became a common sight across the country. Then there's the decline in oil production. Venezuela, a country blessed with the world's largest oil reserves, saw its oil production plummet under Maduro's leadership. Mismanagement and lack of investment in the oil industry led to a severe drop in oil production. This was a double whammy for the economy, as oil exports were the main source of revenue for Venezuela. These policies had a profound impact on the living conditions of the Venezuelan people. They found themselves grappling with sky-high prices, food shortages, and a failing economy. The average Venezuelan lost nearly 24 pounds in weight in 2017 due to food shortages, a grim testament to the crisis. The economic downfall of Venezuela, a once prosperous nation, was set in motion. Maduro's economic policies, far from rescuing the economy, plunged it into an abyss from which recovery seems a distant dream. As the economy crumbled, so too did the human rights of the Venezuelan people. As Maduro's reign progressed, the nation witnessed an alarming degradation of human rights. The respect for human dignity seemed to vanish into thin air, replaced by a regime that thrived on suppression and fear. One of the most glaring violations under Maduro's regime is a political repression. Opposition leaders, journalists, and anyone brave enough to voice their dissent were not spared. They were subjected to intimidation, arbitrary arrests, and in some cases, even torture. This blatant disregard for freedom of speech and expression strikes at the very core of democracy, leaving a chilling effect on anyone daring to challenge the status quo. Censorship was another tool wielded with impunity. The government tightened its control over the media, silencing any voice of criticism. Independent media outlets were shut down or taken over, leaving the Venezuelan people in the dark, fed only with government propaganda. This stranglehold on information is a clear violation of the right to information, a cornerstone of any free society. The use of force against protesters was yet another disturbing trend. Peaceful demonstrations were met with violence, tear gas, and rubber bullets. The right to peaceful assembly, a fundamental pillar of democracy, was utterly disregarded. The streets of Venezuela became a battlefield, with the government's heavy-handed tactics causing countless injuries and loss of lives. These violations were not isolated incidents, but rather a systematic campaign to silence dissent and maintain control. It's a story of a government turning against its own people, of power being prioritized over human rights. The situation in Venezuela under Maduro's regime paints a grim picture of human rights in the 21st century. It's a stark reminder that the fight for human rights is far from over, and that vigilance is needed to protect these rights from being eroded by those in power. In the face of adversity, the Venezuelan people's rights were not upheld, but rather trampled upon. Amidst the turmoil, elections became a tool of manipulation. Imagine a game of chess where one player changes the rules midway, ensuring they alone hold the winning hand. That's the story of the 2018 presidential election under Maduro's regime. The international community was quick to raise red flags. Many nations, from the Americas to Europe, denounced the election as a sham, a puppet show orchestrated by Maduro to cling to power. The allegations were stark. Maduro's government stood accused of suppressing opposition, intimidating voters, and manipulating vote counts. Let's take a closer look at these allegations. Opposition suppression took the form of disqualifying potential candidates, a tactic as subtle as it was insidious. Some of Maduro's most formidable opponents found themselves barred from running, their political careers abruptly halted on dubious grounds. Next, we have voter intimidation. This wasn't just about casting a shadow of fear, it was about exploiting the desperate economic situation of the people. Food boxes were distributed to voters, a cruel carrot dangled in front of a starving populace. The message was clear: vote for Maduro or starve. Then there's the alleged manipulation of vote counts. The National Electoral Council, supposedly an independent body, was packed with pro-Maduro officials. The council reported an astonishing 67% win for Maduro, a figure met with widespread skepticism given the rampant inflation, food shortages, and civil unrest. Internationally, the response was swift and decisive. Many nations refused to recognize the election results, leading to a political crisis that further isolated Venezuela on the global stage. The 2018 election was more than a political event. It was a stark reminder of how easily the sacred process of democracy can be distorted, how the voice of the people can be drowned out by the lust for power. Maduro's regime used the election not as a means of gauging public opinion, but as a tool to consolidate power, to legitimize a reign marked by economic devastation and human rights abuses. In a desperate grasp for power, democracy was the ultimate casualty. Nicolas Maduro's presidency has been a tumultuous journey for Venezuela. A journey that has been marked by a series of unfortunate choices and actions. At the heart of this story lies the economic downfall. A prosperous nation, rich with oil, was reduced to a state of economic ruin under Maduro's watch. The country's wealth was squandered, and the people were left grappling with hyperinflation, shortage of basic necessities, and a currency that's practically worth less than the paper it's printed on. The economic mismanagement was nothing short of catastrophic. And then there are the human rights violations, the suppression of free speech, the brutal crackdown on political opposition, and the widespread reports of torture and extrajudicial killings. These are not just mere allegations, but well-documented facts. The Venezuelan people have been living in a state of fear and oppression, their basic rights trampled upon with impunity. The tale doesn't end there. Maduro's reign has also been marred by accusations of electoral fraud. Elections, the cornerstone of any democracy, were manipulated and distorted to maintain a stranglehold on power. This has further eroded the people's trust in the political system and deepened the divide in an already polarized nation. Today, Venezuela stands at a crossroads. The path to recovery will be long and arduous. It requires strong leadership, sound economic policies, and, most importantly, a commitment to uphold human rights and democracy. The Venezuelan people have suffered enough. It's high time they experienced a leadership that puts their needs and rights first. As we reflect on Maduro's presidency, we are reminded of the devastating impact of poor leadership. His tenure serves as a stark warning of the potential dangers that can arise when power is concentrated in the hands of one individual, unchecked and unbalanced. The legacy of Nicolas Maduro's leadership remains a dark chapter in Venezuela's history, a stark reminder of the devastating impact of poor leadership. It's a tale of a nation brought to its knees, a tale that Venezuela, and indeed the world, must never forget.